And we're back. So, seems like we were just here, and some of us were. So, hello everybody. I'm Steve, Hobo with Wood Chips, and welcome to another Chips and Chat live. I'll remember that one day, how that exactly goes. I think that's how it goes, Chips and Chat. So, first, disclaimers. By show of hands, who here doesn't know what they're doing? I'm figuring this out. And I have to apologize because I made some mistakes last week as I was trying to wrap my head around these V bits and the inlays for V carving. And I made some errors both in my math, my calculations with my calculator, and my explanations. And Chris made a good suggestion last week. Uh, and I got to thinking about it. There wasn't any real way to do it in MillMage, but I'm going to be using MillMage to show you a few things tonight. And I'm also going to be switching over to Lightburn simply because I can show you a better physical or a better digital representation on screen of what the V carves look like and what's happening when it happens. But I made an error whenever I was illustrating my V carves and the angles of the carving last week when I was saying I was using a 30-degree V bit. I said that it's a 30-degree V bit. And so when I did the physical drawing on there, I did the lines at 30 degrees. Well, that's wrong. They're only 15 degrees. It is a 30-degree included angle. So by that, I mean, this is a 30-degree V bit, and the two angles together combined equal 30 degrees. But when you draw a straight line up the middle and split that, then that's only a 15-degree angle on this line right here. So that the edge of that material is not engraved at 30 degrees, it's engraved at 15 degrees. So I had to go back and redo all the math and all the figure, what's that word? All the formulas for the equations in the calculator because I did it wrong. And guess what? It ain't going to be the first mistake I made, and it won't be the last mistake I make. But I got a whole lot better understanding and with some V carves, and not just with the mathematics and figuring out the optimal size for your inlays and your pockets, but in real world practice too. I did a whole lot of trial and error, and CNCs, be it a little desktop like this or a great big old machine, and you're using 1/4-inch bits and so on, it's going to be you're going to have a learning curve, just like you did with your lasers, about learning its thresholds, its minimum capabilities, its maximum, what you can get away with, and then how you can get away with a whole lot more by changing different variables. It's like the IDC Woodcraft V bits. Garrett provides a really, really good list of information on feeds and speeds, all kinds of stuff that you need to set up when you are setting up your tool. But just like with your laser, there are times that, okay, well, that might be a good average. That's not just set in stone, the way to use it. I've got multiple pieces that I've been working. I was testing different practices with the inlays, and this was the first one I tried to do, and I'll talk about it for a second. because I did this and I tried to use Millmage and the way that Millmage is set up, um, the way that I understand it. And I still don't fully understand Millmage because their verbiage is so aggravating. I don't know what they're talking about. And so and their documentation is still incomplete. So I have they'll get there. And so, but it's a little bit frustrating that they've been working on this for over 2 years and they put it out in still in pre-release. So it's an advanced beta, but in over 2 years worth of work, as they've developed this, they didn't update and maintain or get a better documentation as they're developing. Now they got to go back and build the documentation. But anyway, so I tried to use Millmage the way I interpreted the way they want it to be done. And I did this. This is a maple inlay in walnut. But if we get it close enough, you can see there are a couple of things that I'm going to talk about. But you can see all around the top of the wing, you can see a pretty even gap all the way around the perimeter of that wing. And that gap, it's there on the entire angel all the way around. Let me get in here and zoom, focus rather. You can see that gap. It's pretty uniform. But up on the very tip of the wing there, you can see that there's actually there was some blowout on the maple and left an even larger gap. Same thing on the top of the hair right there. So I learned a few things, and down there, some really blowouts. I learned that I don't understand how their math is supposed to work because I got a really poor, in my opinion, a poor fit. And what I did to fill the gap, and this was kind of because this isn't, it's not unusable, it's not great, but to fill that gap, as I was doing the carvings for each piece, before I sucked away all the wood chips, Hobo with wood chips, before I sucked away all the wood chips in the vacuum cleaner, I collected small sample, and there we go. You can see there's some, I don't want to dump them on my table. There you go. A small collection of the maple and a small selection of the walnut. Well, once I put it in and smooth and finished it off, and I had that great big old gap, I then took my wood glue and filled that gap in with wood glue, and then took a pinch of my sawdust and filled in every bit of the gap. And that's how you don't see a great big gap in there. So that helped, but it's not ideal and it's not perfect. I'm not perfect, but I like to produce as close to perfection when my work as I can. So I said, okay, that didn't work. I don't understand Millmage's philosophy or their, and so I said, all right, so let's scratch that. So then I went and I decided I was going to do a little bit more, and I was going to do an inlay with some words on there. Now lay me down to sleep. Little angel, little you praying there. Problem was, this is walnut, and walnut it can cleave, it can break fairly easily, especially along the grains of the walnut. And when I did this, I got a close up of the video. Something I learned with the where there it is. What I was talking about, your feeds and speeds, and even though your manufacturer might provide you some suggested feeds and speeds, that's not a rule. That's not an absolute. There are times that you're going to need to change that, to vary that. And this is an example. And this is going to be a close-up of this. Let me switch screens, auto, and play this. There we go. So it'll play in a second. But you'll see the tips of the N and the tips of the W. Come on, play, baby. There you go. Uh, they're all chewed up and blown out because it was just too fragile, or was it? It wasn't necessarily too fragile so much as it was about my feeds and speed and the amount of pressure applied on those pieces by the bit while it's doing the carving. So this one was scrapped. That's not useful or usable at all. And the E of theirs, part of the E is completely missing. So I said, okay, I need to back up and regroup. And so I got to looking at it, and I slowed my feed down by about 20 or 25%. And I decreased my step over by about 20%. So for those who understand, and there's probably more of you out there who know more about what's going on than I do. And if anybody out there, and some of you have been, and I greatly appreciate it, if call me out on it, if in it, or don't even call me. It's not that you're calling me out on it, but you're informing me about, yeah, that, but you said that, but this really is a better way to do this or that. Educate me, because I'm trying to educate as I learn, and I don't like to teach people, you know. So feedback is valued and appreciated. But by slowing down the feed, or how fast the CNC is moving through the material as it's trying to carve out, slowing it down by about 20-25%, and then decreasing the amount of material that I'm trying to remove it in every pass, that relieves tension and pressure and heat, all of those things from the material as I'm carving it out. And what I did with the letters, the letters that come to a point, the W's, the M's, anything that come to a very, very sharp point, I went in and I used the radius tool to make sure that the tips of all of those pieces came to no smaller of a point than 1 millimeter. So I actually adjusted all of the text so that nothing was less than a millimeter at its skinniest point. Totally unnoticeable on the screen and while I'm doing the work. But by making those changes, I was able to go from all that blowout to this. Come to Papa. Now this one will rotate and I'll zoom in some. What's the matter? I don't want to pause. I want you to play. Oh, okay. There we go. And the first down here, the first one I'm going to show you is the down to. I used, again, the settings from Millmage, and I just didn't like, and that down at the bottom of the D is not a blowout. That's actually wood grain. And I was like, that's a lesson learned. But you see, I've still got that gap around the letters, but I don't have the chew up and blowout of the W's and all of that. It's all good and clean, but I've still got the gap there. That O looks horrible, up close. From a distance, don't look bad at all. And once you put a finish on it, it might be passable. But now I use my Hobo calculator to figure out the size of my inlays. And look at that finish. That tip of that W, it's not even blown out. I'm going to zoom in on it in a second. It's all there. That's a strange spot in the wood grain, because we zoom in tight, and it'll focus in a second. You can see the inner piece of the W is there. There's just a little pit, a little bitty hole right there. Zoom in and focus. Come on, you'll get there. Get in there. Focus up. There you go. See that it's there. It's just a funky little circle looking pit. But anyway, and stuff like that is going to be pretty inevitable, especially when you're working with hardwoods and you got to deal with grain and all that stuff. But the difference and the fit between that and the Now I is night and day. And I'm going to explain how I got there correctly this time with a couple of examples, thanks to Chris's suggestion about showing different colors and different and show them in the fill mode and all that, and how this all works. And I'm curious. I mentioned this to those who were in the other stream today. I don't know if there is a true need for this calculator, if I fully understand how the software works. I might be able to get there once it's fully developed and explained. Don't know. But then again, when I asked, I did a Google search and looked for V-carve inlay calculators. And I got a bunch of results that came back in the way of data in the form of spreadsheets and charts of suggested sizes and all that kind of stuff. But no functioning real-time interactive calculators that you can input and get instant results on. And then I even went and asked ChatGPT. I said, hey, does anybody have a V-bit inlay calculator like I'm developing? And it thought and searched and thought, nah, not out there. So one of two things. One, there's absolutely no need for it, and that's why nobody's ever done it before. Or nobody's approached it from the mindset that I'm approaching it from, or thought, simply because they understand. And I got here because I don't know what I'm doing. And that's how I got to this point. So I'm going to scroll up here and see who I've seen some comments. And like I said, I do value the comments, and especially the feedback about, well, yeah, hey, you do this or try that. I did, Carl. Carl, I had a great dinner. Got to meet Robert. Y'all see Robert in the stream sometimes. He's down from upstate New York. Came down to Hickory to a wood scroll sawing event in Hickory, which is just 45 minutes up the road. And he said, man, I'm so close, I need to go meet Hobo. So he came down and we went to dinner, and we had a good dinner. So I did. Thank you. We had a great time. And comments. Let's see here. Jer, I wonder if it works like my Otor laser when you unplug power adapter, it will still light up through. Yeah. We did determine a ton of people have commented about the Cubico staying powered up on the control panel with the USB connected, because that does apparently pull its power supply from the USB cable. But the problem with that was the instructions on doing the firmware update didn't tell you to unplug the USB, and it won't do the update until you completely power it down. So let's see here. The last mistake I'll make will be preceded by the phrase, hold my beer and watch this. It's, yeah, down here. Hey, y'all, well, watch this. Let's see here. And Chris says most devices fed by USB cable will. A USB-B is powered. Yeah. It's just there was some unclear instructions on the update procedures. I was just getting ready to say sawdust, LOL. Where was that bit from that was on the walnut? All the bits I'm using are from IDC Woodcraft. IDC Woodcraft is where I'm getting all of my bits. And what you can't try is whatever letter is giving you the most trouble. Just do it like a test piece. Yeah, and there is a whole lot of trial and error, and until you get comfortable with the machine, you realize the limitations, the different materials you get, and that's one thing I will. And this is switching gears and mentioning Clack. Well, watching him over the past few years, if you listen, if you've been watching him, you'll notice that he says, "Well, I use this material. I use this cup. I use this tumbler. I use this, and that's what I use. I use that, and that's what I use. I don't use anything else. I use that. I use this, and I get great results from it. I don't use nothing else. Well, he's got something, and it works, and he's got it dialed in. And as long as the manufacturer hasn't made any changes, then he's good. He's got it all figured out, dialed in. He can, get repeated results without, testing. So, and that's just becoming familiar with the machine and the product, and that's time and experience. So a lot of testing, but if you do a whole lot of testing and you don't keep some consistency, if you're doing the same letter in the same depth and the same profile and all that, but you're trying it in walnut, then you're trying it in cherry, and then you're trying it in maple, and well, you're going to get different results all the way around, so you got to keep the testing down with as few of variables as possible until you can start figuring out, okay, this is the result I can expect when I'm doing it with that. And then you do new tests, and it's going to be a big learning curve. And I think when I'm trying to do the inlays on really bitty small pieces like that, the gaps are even, I think, going to be even more noticeable than when you're trying to do an inlay on a piece of material. The inlay is 3 or 4 inches across, and you may not notice that 1/8 of an inch gap or a 1/16 or a 0.5 millimeter gap that you notice here. And you're not going to have points as small, or that's going to be less than a millimeter. The bigger you do them, the easier it's going to get, I believe. Let's see here. Carl says IDC Woodcraft is having a large bit set giveaway. Yep, and you can go enter, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to win it. I've already entered, and it's mine. I'm claiming it. All right. So I made mistakes in the geometry of the bit. And then we'll go in and fix all those things. And then plus, I've been doing this so long for the past 2.5 weeks, trying to get all this figured out, that at one point, I think it was yesterday, my brain completely shut off. I couldn't figure it out. I'd just done it, and I'm like, how does this work? I cannot physically recreate what I've been doing. Everything just shut down. I had to stop, go take the dog out, go walk, take a break, and go away, because everything was just lost to me. And then it was like, oh yeah, dummy, you did, and then it clicked again. So right now we're on, we're good. So what I want to show you is, I showed you the 30-degree V-bit is a 30-degree included angle, meaning one side is 15 degrees. All right. So if we go over to Lightburn, we're going to use it just for these illustrations. If I've got a piece of material, I've got this round disc, and I want to put just this square inlay in here. I don't know, say it's going to be a coaster, and I'm going to do a walnut coaster, and I want to do a maple square inlay that I'm going to come back and laser engrave on that maple. Well, I want to create this pocket in that disc, and this disc is, we're going to say for these illustration purposes, wow, it's a big coaster. I mean, we're going to say a Lazy Susan. It's 14 inches. But this square is 5.1972 inches. I intentionally did not use round numbers for this illustration because I want to show you how valuable this calculator is and how precise it can be regardless of what the sizes are. And I'm curious for you, for Jack, Chris, anybody. I think there's a couple people in here who are some really advanced CNC workers, or you've done quite a bit of CNC work, and you're using a lot of the different software programs out there. I'm curious to hear back from you on if you feel like this is a valuable tool or not. And Jack says a 14-inch coaster would be good for his beer cup. I hear you, redneck. All right. So, and to illustrate that all of this isn't pre-planned, I'm going to show you this and how it all works and why it works. And then I want to ask one or two of you for some random numbers, and we're going to recreate a pocket based on the figures and show you the calculator in action and how quick it is and how fast it works, and show you that it's to me, it's the quickest, simplest way to figure out a male inlay that I've seen that I can understand and grasp and not have to trust that the software programming going on back there is working. So let's go over here to Lightburn. All right, so this is a profile of this. This is the disc on its profile. It's we'll put it in millimeters. It's a 10 millimeter thick disc, and I'm going to do a 3 millimeter inlay. And this right here is a 3 millimeter pocket. If I take that and snap it, align it to the center and then to the top, if you look, let's put that in fill. There you go. That fills that up perfectly. Completely fills that up. There's the inlay. But you don't want to do that. You need to leave a glue pocket. You need to leave a glue pocket on the bottom, and you need a little glue pocket on the side. So the trick is, how do you figure that out? And then what you have to think about when you're doing a V-carve, the tip of the bit, the point, that is whatever your diameter, or in this case, it's the perimeter of that square is. If that was a 4-inch square, the point is going to be on the line of that 4-inch square, and then the sides of it are and to the bottom of your pocket. So if you were doing and this is where V carving gets really, really complicated, because if you're doing a 3 millimeter deep female pocket with a 30-degree V bit, then the side angle is 15 degrees, but only 3 millimeters deep. Now, if you're going to go 6 millimeters deep, you're lowering that down. Well, that angle is going to continue to go out and away, making the actual requiring that male inlay to be even larger. The deeper you go, the bigger that male inlay is going to have to be. So when you're calculating all that, you got to take all these factors into play. And you want to leave those glue pockets. So if I come back over here and I look at this, and I'm going to put this back in line mode so I can see this. And I want to show you, let's come in and get my ruler and measure that line right there. That line is 132.01 millimeters. Completely irrelevant. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how big your pocket, wide your pocket is. With my calculator, all you have to know are, depending on which, I've got a basic calculator and an advanced version. If you go with the basic calculator, and I've got it set with a default of a 0.2 of a millimeter glue gap at the bottom and 0.2 of a millimeter glue gap on the sides, all you have to put in is the depth of the pocket and the angle of the V-bit, and it produces your male inlay size. Simple. Watch this. So I'm not even worried about that 132.01. I know I've done my female pocket 3 millimeters deep with a 15-degree or a 30-degree V-bit so it's a 15-degree angle, but it's a 30-degree V-bit. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm working on putting this on the website. I'm undetermined on how I'm going to make this available yet. Let me go to my downloads folder. You guys can't see this. I just will get there. Nope. Downloads. All right. So this is how I plan to package it. You'll download a zip folder, and you download it. And when you do, you open it up and you've got the VBit calculator folder. You open that, and there's two files. There's a README file that tells you how to use the calculator. And then this is the actual calculator. And I played with a couple of different ways of doing this, and I finally decided to do a version that will work in just about any web browser, be it in whether you're on iOS or Windows or whatever. In fact, let me open the README. Is this? Yeah, there's the README right. Cancel. Go away. Let's maximize that. All right. Thank you for purchasing the VBit ML Embed calculator. How to use? Download the zip, and this file named this will work in Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Safari. The calculator will open immediately. You enter your VBit. It's got all the instructions on there. And if we click on this and open it up, it will populate a brand new browser. I had to drag it from the other screen. And this is the basic calculator with two data entry fields. The angle of your VBit. In this case, it was a 30-degree VBit. Come on, 30 degrees. And my pocket depth was 3 millimeters. And I just tell it to calculate. And now that quick, it tells me my optimum toolpath offset is 0.60, and I'm working in millimeters because millimeters. And I can change it and work. If you want to work in inches, you can work in inches or millimeters. And my melt insert is going to be 2.79 millimeters. So now I have the values I need to calculate my mel inlay. So 0.61, we're going to remember that right there, 0.61 offset. So if I go back over to here, I select that. That was what was used to make the pocket. I'm going to come over here and do an offset of a 0.61. Do not delete the original. I want to go outward, and I want to do corners and say okay. And right now what I'm doing is showing you the I'm going to create the profile of this. But if I was going to actually create the operation and all, that's what I would use right here to make the actual melt inlay. But I'm wanting to show you the physical representation down here and how it fits. So it was 0.279 millimeters in height. And that got rounded a little bit funny. 2.8 would be spot on. But for whatever reason, the math on this is closer to 2.79 than actual 2.8. So I'm going to unlock this and tell it to go 2.79. Come on, 2.79. There we go. Now, here's the tricky part that you have to catch when you're talking about V-carving. When you're doing the female pocket and it's carving with that bit going down and creating the pocket, your angle is going to be going from that perimeter cut up and outward, because your female bit's coming down, going around that perimeter. Your V bit's shaped like that, so your angle on your female pocket goes out, or from the bottom goes out. When you're carving the male inlay, you're going to invert that. So we've got this piece, we've got the 0.61 offset, whatever those dimensions are. We just did a 0.61 offset. But now I got to put my V-bit angle on there. So if I come over here and I just draw a straight line and I rotate that 15 degrees, then I align that to the bottom, and we're going to go all the way over here to there. That's not right, because if I cut it there, or even if I come to right there, line it up there, that's not right, because the bit, in fact, let's do this. Let's duplicate that. Control D, duplicate it, and then mirror that. And then Alt Shift H. There we go. There is what the bit looks like. And the bit is going to ride around that bottom corner like that. So that V bit is going to carve it like that. So the female pocket has that V carving out. Well, the male is going to have it going toward the center of that piece. So I need to take this one and bring it down to this end. But it needs to be, yeah, right there in that corner. And now I can take my scissors. I'll cut that away to create the angle there, and come. Can't get my mouse to get right on. There we go, there and there. All right, so there's the male inlay. Now that's sitting just like it would be on the bed of your CNC. It's sitting flat. You carve that out. You've got the offset done. It's carved that out. You got a matching 15-degree angle. So when we rotate this piece to fit into our pocket, and I'm going to put this on a different path, and then I'm going to put everything in a fill mode. And I'll bring it down here so we can see it. So if you remember, when I took this is the exact size of what created that. And when we put it in place, oh, wrong, didn't want to do all of it. Control Z, just that and that. And then we say align to the center and the top. That fills that up completely. There's no glue gaps. That won't work. We move that out the way, and I take this one. This is the one that I created the offset. And this is where it will mess with your mind. We made it bigger. We went with a 0.61 millimeter outward offset. This piece is larger than the female pocket, but it has to be in order to fill the void that was created by that V bit. So this larger piece, when I put it in here to the center and the top, I've got a glue gap all the way down the side, all the way around the bottom. And it is a perfect 0.2 of a millimeter glue gap all the way around. I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to do any calculations. All I had to do was put in it's a 30-degree bit, and it's a 3 millimeter pocket, and boom, there's the size of the offset you need. And you want to cut it and cut it at this height. And here is the advanced version. If you didn't want to do 0.2 of a millimeter, if you are really super good and you got different materials, maybe you're doing it with acrylic or something else that doesn't need as large of a glue gap, because different materials are going to have different requirements. So if that's the case, and I'll go back and look at your comments and questions in a second, but if you were needing to do something other than the default 0.2 of a millimeter on the side and bottom glue gap, if we go there and switch, if I come to my calculator and I turn on the advanced calculator, now I can enter any one of these values and change my outcome. So if I'm going to leave this the same, I'm doing the 30-degree V bit, and it was a 3 millimeter pocket, but I want a smaller glue gap. I can tell it I want it to only be a 15 hundredths of a millimeter. And on the side, you know what? Whatever. I'm going to give it 12 and tell it to calculate. And it's going to give me the offset and the height that I need to create that exact male inlay. And it will work that quick every time and give you a perfect dimensions for the male inlay. If you were using if you were using easel, and I hated easel. I played with easel a couple years ago, and it was so basic and so restricting about what you could do with it. You know what? I could do V carving with easel using this and not having to wear, because if I've just got a simple square that I use the V carve bit, Easel doesn't have to know that. It's just doing a carve based on a perimeter size, cutting the line of a shape. I create the mail pocket using this. I can do V carving with easel. That's because I don't think, at least when I looked at it, easel didn't have that ability. So there's where you can use something like this with a really simple software and do some complicated or more complex inlays. So I'm going to go back up here. Who these comments? All right, I seen that. All right, now. And a lot of you watching are maybe a little bit new to Hobo with Wood and Hobo with Wood chips, because Hobo with Wood chips is new, period. But if you want to make a comment or a question, that I'll definitely see, precede your question or comment with a question mark or an exclamation point, and that way it'll jump out at me. Let's see here, because I don't want to miss anybody since we're such a small group. Description of what? All right, we're so far down the the link is in the description. Description of what? I don't know what you guys are referring to. Watch Garrett's video because Garrett plays IDC man. Yeah, I seen that. The bit will not ride to the bottom of that pocket, just to the top. The bit will not ride to the bottom of that pocket, just to the top. I don't follow you. And this is a sad thing. Where we're at. All right, your pocket needs to have the same 15 degree. The pocket does. The math that I created for this calculator keeps the angles exactly the same, and it fits like a glove. It is. I don't have to tell it. I'm telling you, there's geometry, trigonometry, basic math. There is so much work that went into creating this. And I'm still modifying it. I'm still working on it. Let's see here. Are you going to have a separate website store for the chips? No, it'll be a separate web page. It'll still be on Hobo with Wood, but I'm going to, as I create stuff that'll be CNC files, it'll be a separate file that's CNC digital files. And I'll probably rename the other page as laser digital files. So they'll be on the same website, but in different pages to keep everything organized. And I will have no glue gap to the edges. They will be tight as possible, just a gap at the bottom. You can change that with this calculator. Check this out. So if I decide my side clearance, I want it to be 0, I can just tell it 0. I calculated it early with that 12 tenths. Well, I'm going to calculate it again, and it changed that to a 0.80. So that's the beauty of this calculator, is you can set it to whatever you want it to be. And because different products, different materials are going to require different settings. So I think I'm sitting on something that's pretty slick here. I think, but I love like that. Hey, I don't want a glue gap. Well, you don't have to have a glue gap with this. In your math, did you take into account a female will cut inside the line and a male? No, I didn't, because what I'm doing, I did not approach it that way. That's where I don't. I had an issue with the way that the logic. I had an issue with the logic. My brain didn't process the way that they've got that set up. And if you're and riddle me this now, Chris. Chris says the female will cut inside the line and the male will cut outside the line. But if you're doing a V bit and it's a line. It's not. It's what? How much is that variable going to be? I mean, what? How is there an inside or outside with a 0 point? Now I can see if you're using an end mill that's got a 3 millimeter base. Well, here's the line. You cut outside the line, inside the line, or on the line. But when it's a V bit, it's on the line, period, isn't it? I don't see how you can have an inside or outside when you come to a 0 point and you've got a line. It's either inside or outside with a 0 point is the line, right? The only time the inside and outside the line comes to play in my mind is when you're using a bit that doesn't come to a 0 point. And some of your V-carve bits have a blunt bottom. Not all of your V bits have a 0 point. And my calculator allows for that too. On the advanced calculator, V bit tip diameter, 0 if pointed. But if your tip is not pointed, if you've got a 0.5 millimeter or blunt point, then you can put that in there and calculate. And here we're at 0.80 with a 0. But if it's a 0.5, a 0.5 millimeter, it changes that. So I didn't calculate it on an inside or outside the line, because a V bit with a 0 point is going to be on the line, period. From the way I reckon everything, the way this redneck brain works. But because if you can have that, and this calculator is, and I've named it a V-bit male inlay calculator. It is specific use. You mentioned about the ability to use ball nose and other things like that. Well, there's where you coming into your inside and outside the line comes into play. So this is not set up. This calculator is not ideal for that unless you start to take your ball nose and say, okay, well, the diameter of that ball nose is going to be, and figure that in as the tip diameter, then you could probably still use that. I haven't gone down that path with it because I haven't done any ball nose or any other thing. Right now I'm tackling one thing at a time, and I'm trying to really comprehend and embrace V carving. And with the lack of documentation and lack of understanding of how the calculations work in MillMage, I've come up with my own calculator. And I'm curious, is it valuable? Does it have value to other CNCers? You guys that are doing the CNC work, is it something that you can say, okay, well, actually, especially, Jack said, well, I don't want to side. Well, there you go. I took it out. I don't have a V bit. It's got up. Well, good. You can adjust it. I've tried to think of everything. I tried to, but since I don't know what I'm doing, I doubt I've thought of everything. It calculates for the surface. I guess MillMage calculates. Yeah, and like I said, I just I have a hard time. Like I said, this works flawlessly. And like I said, that inlay that I've got with my that is as perfect of an inlay as you could ask for. In my humble opinion, because I don't know what I'm doing. So just for giggles, though, so you can see that none of this was prepared or made up. Let me go back over to Lightburn, and I'm going to ask for we'll do a quick demo. Let me get this prepped. Alt-Shift W, switch, so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to get rid of all of that. I'm going to make that just a rectangle again. And, oh, not that button, stupid. The letter D, Control Z. There we go. The letter D. I still, even after years, I still hit the delete button instead of the D to get rid of nodes. All right, Jack, Jack, if you're still there, give me a value. Give me a 2-digit whole number followed by 2-digit any 2-digit decimal. So 4 digits total, like 10.69. Any number you want. You decide. And if Jack's already gone, Chris, if you're still there, one of you, first one, throw me up. Give me 2 digits and 2 decimals. Did Chris fall asleep? All right, anybody. First one, throw it up there. 2 digits and 2 decimals. All right, there it is. Chris got 10.56. All right, so we're going to make the width of this 10.56. And how deep? How deep do you want it to be? 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever. How deep is this pocket? Or how deep is this inlay going to be? 0.17. 0.17 is how deep it'll be. All right, so 0.17. All right, so that's a little bitty inlay. So we're going to take this and make this a whole lot smaller. It don't need to be that big. And let's take that and put it in the top center. And before I do that, I've got to make it a V carve. Too far. There we go. Oh. So this is the female pocket. So I need to draw a straight line, rotate it 15 degrees. And this is going to be the female. So it's going to be going from the outer perimeter. So a line to the bottom and then Alt-Shift-8. There we go. And then I need to copy that, Control-D, duplicate it, flip it, and put it over here and align it, Alt-Shift-H. There we go. Now, I got to convert it, get my nodes, convert to a path, show my nodes, and I'm going to break here and here and break and break. All right, that's so I can get rid of those side pieces and then extend those out to get the actual pocket. So that's going to be an extend. I'm on. I don't know why. Let's try it. This has happened to me a couple times tonight. Select that, go to node editing, and E for extend. And it won't extend. All right. Well, we'll cheat. I want to keep it in a straight line, so we'll put it there like that, and then grab my node. Take that out past there, and out past there. Anybody else run into that before where the node editing just doesn't want to cooperate? All right, so cut, and cut. All right, so using Chris's suggested, I've now got that pocket. I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to subtract, see, A, subtract B, and there's my pocket. All right, now we went with a 10.56 length, but that's irrelevant. The only numbers that matter is he told me he wanted it to be 0.17 millimeters deep, and we use a 30-degree V-bit. So all I got to do is go to my calculator, and I can use, well, you know what? We'll do combine Jack's and Chris's. So we got 30-degree V-bit. Our pocket depth was 0.17 millimeters. And our glue pocket, we'll say, let's do 0.2 glue pocket. And it was a 0 pointed, and the side clearance, we'll do it like Chris said, or like Jack said, do 0 side clearance and calculate. Oh, please correct for highlighted field. Oh, I did something wrong somewhere. Calculate glue pocket. Huh. Not 20 millimeters. What in the world? Oh my goodness. Now, 0.02. Thank you. All right. And so the offset is an 0.5. So if I go back over here, and you know what? I didn't keep the original piece, dadgummit, or the original length, but I can scroll up here and you said it was 10.56. So if this was a square that was 10.56 millimeters, and then I need to do an offset of a 0.05 offset, 0.05 millimeters, delete the original, say okay. The depth was, now the male insert is a 0.15. So I come down here, unlock my aspect ratio, 0.15, and this is all irrelevant. This is just to show you the representation of the output. So here, and this time it needs to rotate inward. Oh, not that, inwards. So we rotate that in 15 degrees, put it in the bottom corner. Duplicate it, flip it, and put it in the other side. Then use some scissors to generate that representation of that male inlay per the calculator. Rotate it. Tell it to go to the center and the top. And that side, something was going on with that side clearance. I don't know if it's so that didn't work because I think I was doing it right. No, because the side clearance we said 0. The glue pocket was what we were doing. So I got the glue pocket right, but something didn't work with that. That's something that I have to look into. So there you go. I got egg on my face, not really, because it's still in development. I don't know. I have not tried to do something so low. Do you do inlays that shallow, Chris? Doing alley foil inlay. So, okay. So that, yeah, I haven't done an inlay that shallow, but I need to look at that and see what's going on. Oh, yeah, that. Thank you, Jack. I didn't even think about that. Holding shift keeps it locked in a straight line. Thank you. The V-bit, I think, should be on the top line down, not the bottom, because you flip it. Yeah, I could draw it out that way. You're right. I could have put it on the top line instead of, because I was taking it and cutting it and then rotating it. But I was doing it because the reason I did it that way is because that's how it's going to be created on the CNC. So drawing it for the physical representation, I could have put it at the top, just to create the physical representation, but I was creating it as the CNC would have created it. So that why inside and outside line makes a difference. You have to keep in mind that your part gets flipped. I don't think it matters. I still don't see how that matters, Jer, when you've got a 0 point V-bit. I don't know, because I don't know what I'm doing. But if you've got a 0 point bit, inside the line or outside the line is on the line, isn't it? Because you're telling them where to put, unless it's not going from the, is it not going from the point? Lightning bolt. All right, so here I'm assuming that it's going to be carving this is going to be carving the line. But what you were telling me, Chris and Jer, is that it's taken from this measure, this point. This is going to cut the line, or this is going to cut the line. Is that what y'all are saying? That it's from the outer perimeter or the outer diameter of the bit is inside or outside the line? Glue pocket can't be bigger than the inlay. Oh, there you go. That might be. I didn't even think about that. I see. Chris is good. Chris threw me a curveball whenever he gave me that little bitty size for that inlay. So yeah, Mike, good catch. I tried to do a 0.20 glue gap on a piece that was only a 0.17. Yeah, good eyeballs. Good. He gets the gold star tonight. Good catch. I got a question first. Are you making the male part to fit perfect in the pocket, or do you surface it to flatten the inlay to the base part? All right. Are you making the male part to fit perfect in the pocket, or do you surface it and flatten the inlay to the? Yes, that's what I do. I've got there's my male inlay, and I've got material left over, so I'll put that in, glue it in place, clamp it together, and then remove that material to the surface, and I'm done. I think that was what you were asking. Not going from the point. No, not going from the point. No. Imagine the cut at the bottom of the V-bit and 75 up, 3/4 up the V-bit. All right. So yes. Okay. All right. So now I've got a whole new. So I did not create my calculator that way. I created my calculator. So it's, at least I'm 90% sure the way that the calculator works is it's from the V-bit being on the line, the point being on the line. So that might be nobody's ever done it that way, and I did it that way because I don't know what I'm doing. But it works. I mean, I got proofs in the pudding, and that right there is one more darn good looking inlay. The way I calculated it was from the center of the V and not from the perimeter of the bit. Now I understand what you're saying. If the bit's 1/8 of an inch, here's the line, say there or there, not from the point. Gotcha. Learning. Thank you. Yes, from how deep up the bit, from how deep up on the bit, the depth of cut. I don't follow you there, Jer. Taken from the point of which the line hits the side of the bit. Okay. All right. Uh yeah, that's what I said, Jack. He threw me a curveball, and then I totally blew it because I didn't even catch the how thin it was, and I tried to make the glue gap bigger than the inlay, and then I think all of that's what caused all of the irregular outputs. I asked for a challenge, and he threw one at me. Thanks, Chris. Uh yeah, I think he said he's done some kind of foil inlay or something, and that's why he was challenging me, and he really did. So on a V-bit cutting, 0.25 deep, a quarter millimeter deep. I guess that's how far up the bit that will be on the line, not the point. Okay. Yeah. So I'm now, yeah, I'm beginning to understand the inside and outside the line with a V carve. But that's not how I created the calculator. I don't, I'm pretty sure I created it to work from the line, and that way. Well, I'll keep playing, keep testing. And I seen a few of you. Ed mentioned needing to go to West Penn, and Jack, you need some material from West Penn. I need to get some material for the flag cases, the memorial flag cases. I'm out too. So Ed, if you're still out there, I will holler at you. I'll text you. I do need to go. I need to. I don't know if Dad will go with us or what, but I need to go to West Penn. Uh, that way, when you surface it, it will be cleaner. Uh, you need to make that inlay a little deeper. That way, when you surface it, it'll be cleaner. I have to bring, and we'll have to get together and go to lunch or something and show you. I can show you some of the stuff that I've got. That is why you do in and outside the line. And I seen that in the images you showed me in Millmage, and now I'm beginning to understand a little bit better, but I'm still having a hard time getting because there. I tried using Millmage and the settings, and I was just getting some terrible gaps, in which I continue to tune that, but I was using their defaults, and it wasn't working good at all. Glue gap should be at the bottom only. And inlays are calculated for the surface, so you get a gap at surface. And okay. All right, that'll work. So I've got a lot more. I've understood a whole lot more in the past week with V carving about some of the biggest things that I learned. The big takeaways for me this week was for really fine pointed stuff, slow that feed down and back off the load on it and decrease your step over. Make smaller steps at slower speeds, and they'll be less fragile, less inclination for them to break off. Take those points, and if just for giggles, if you haven't seen, and this is in Millmage, so we'll switch over here and say I've got a text in here. We'll do that one now. I used Arial Round. Arial Round Bold, and they were probably, well, we won't do probably. I got it right here. I can measure it. Oh my goodness. It was that size. If I look and come in here, let's draw an ellipse, and I'll do a 1 millimeter. From my experience this week and from the testing that I did, if I keep that at its narrowest point, no more than a millimeter, I get rid of all that down here and round that over right there, because all of that is extremely fragile. Everything inside that circle is extremely fragile and has a high propensity to want to break off. So I could simply select that text, convert it to a path, get rid of that node, but I don't have to get rid of that node. I can come over here to my radius tool, and let's tell it to be a 1 millimeter radius. That took it up too much, so let's do a half. Control Z and see if that's enough, or 0.5 might still be. Yeah, it's still too much. So a 0.25 radius, and that's not enough. 0.3. I like that. I get a preview of that radius. That right there is perfect. So now I can say, you know what? Let's do that, and then come over here, and anywhere there's a point, just put that radius on there, and there, and there, and that right there. Get rid of that little circle there. That makes for a whole lot less possibility of that blowing out or chipping off or cleaving, breaking. And that's another way that I got such a really good fit and clean piece with that. Now I've got. I don't know that watching anything, and I watched the Vectric inlay with Garrett, and that's what prompted me on this whole journey of creating this calculator, because even Garrett, with his, he's like, and he's he's really proficient with his Vectric and his CNC work. But whenever he got to do it, he was doing the feather inlay video. He's like, okay, for your clearances in Vectric, just use this value and this value. There's a lot of people who talk about a bunch of different stuff, but explain everything. He said, these values work. They work great, and they give you a perfect result. And just trust me, they work. Plug them in and use it. Well, if you're using Vectric and those do work, well, then great. But I'm not using Vectric. I'm using MillMage, and I'm trying to develop my skills with MillMage, and hopefully MillMage continues to progress and develop, but not at the same pace that it has for the last 2 years. Now that they've actually put out a pre-release candidate out there, hopefully that's actually going to start taking some legs and growing at a rapid pace now. Hopefully. But and the issue, another problem, David, with watching any of the, and this is coming from, I don't know what I'm doing. MillMage, in their infinite wisdom, decided to use vocabulary that's completely opposite, counterintuitive, or whatever. It has nothing to do with the CNC world. They didn't bother adopting any of the same verbiage or bringing in. So I can watch all the Vectric videos and everything, but because I don't know what I'm doing and I don't understand what they're talking about, and none of what they talk about translates into MillMage because they don't use any of the same descriptions, it really don't help me a whole lot. I don't know what I'm doing. And like I said, I didn't realize that even with the V-carve, it's not cutting from the point. but I got to double check my calculator, but I'm almost positive that I figured that up so that it's my calculator creates that male inlay offset based on the VBET cutting the line. But I might be wrong. I don't know what I'm doing. If you make your pocket deeper, you can still have those sharp corners. Yeah, but you still want to slow it down a little bit because I was doing some at 3 millimeters. I mean, 3 millimeter deep inlay. That's not it's not shabby. But now, if I was using a bigger CNC, Chris, and I had bigger material, but now see that's the other thing is, uh, we're working with this little thing. We're working on postcard size pieces, so everything's got to be small. And honestly, if I can get, and I got this just to overcome this learning curve to go from I don't know what I'm doing to getting pretty good with doing CNC work. If I can really get stuff dialed in with this little bitty stuff and doing micro stuff and small stuff, I, because I think it's just like with lasers. The bigger the material you're working with, the easier it is to put stuff together and work with. I think the CNC is going to be the same thing. The larger the CNC, the bigger your cuts, and I think it'll be easier. So if I can get this really dialed in, I feel like the others are going to be even as good or better. Just thought when testing different materials for how fragile to do a full alphabet. Ooh, then find the letters with problems, then make up a test base of letters from that. That would be good if you had a ton of time and a ton of material. But I think for right now, while I'm in this point of my learning stage, like Jack just said, if you went with a deeper pocket and you were doing larger pieces, then you can keep those points, and you're not going to be keeping them to a minimum of that tip, at a millimeter, because I don't think you would have anything that when you start doing bigger, deeper pieces, it's not going to be as fragile. And since we're working on such small pieces, if I keep all of my tips to a minimum radius of about 1 millimeter and just approach it from there, and make sure as I'm laying it out and designing it, make sure everything has at least a millimeter of meat on it, then I don't have to worry about that blowout right now. I can continue to develop the other techniques. And as I get really, really good with those, then if I want to start bringing some of that detail back in, working with deeper pockets, bigger materials, bigger projects, then I can just quit doing the modifications and not worry about allowing that extra meat to be on there. I found cutting it close goes in depth how it works with drawings. I have a problem. Jerry, is your first language English? And I'm not being funny. I'm just wondering, are you using a translator? Because I have a hard time following your sentences. I found cutting it close goes in depth how it works with drawings on inlays. I don't follow. I found cutting it close goes in. Yeah, I just don't follow your sentences. In Vectric, you do one on the inside. Well, and that's how Millmage is here too. Millmage cuts the inside of one, outside of another. The problem you're missing is the software knows the tool geometry. So when you set Millmage is supposed to do all that too, David. I just don't understand their verbiage, and because they don't call it flat depth. That's what I'm saying. They don't call these things the same thing in Millmage. So I've seen the tech, but by looking at the illustrations and the way that the inlays are illustrated in Millmage, one is cutting outside the line, one's cutting inside the line. and you can set your depths, and you are putting in the tool geometry. You're doing all of that. So it's supposed to be doing these things. I just don't understand the software, and no one has explained it to me satisfactorily so that my scrambled brain can comprehend what's going on. Now, it does help now realizing that it's not cutting from the point, it's cutting from up the bit for the perimeter, inside and outside, and it's not the point. But the allowance is what they call it and I'll go over here to MillMage. So I've got this. Let's put all of this. We'll group it all. Group. I'm going to create a new operation, and I'm going to create the female inlay. I'm going to do it with the 30-bit inlay, 30 degree V-bit, and I'm going to start it at 0. My final depth, which I'm guessing is equivalent to their what'd you call it, flat depth or whatever. Final depth is, we'll say it's going to be 3 millimeters, and my depth per pass we'll do 3 millimeters. We can do it all. Do this in one pass. And here, the female inlay, if we look at, and I wish I could, you know what? I can. I'll do this. I'm going to go say my Windows Shift S, and then I'm going to grab this right here. Actually, I'm not even going to worry about the cut preview. We're just going to grab this right here. And then we're going to, all right, that's all good. So I've got my start depth, my final depth per pass. It's going to be one pass. I can set up my step over rates, all the ramp angles, all the different things. You can set all that up in MillMage and say, okay, now that's the female. Now I'm going to come over here. Let's paste this. There we go. So that is that image that they have for the illustration of the female inlay. The dotted line is supposed to be the line of your inlay, and it shows that your path is staying inside the line. Well, if we go and look at that's the female, and we're going to assign that to that pocket or that operation. I'm going to get rid of that. I don't know what that is. Go away. So there is the female inlay. But when I go back over here, this is where I get lost, Chris. And I see I've seen a little bit of Cutting It Close on Facebook. I haven't checked him out on YouTube. I need to go check him out. But here's where I get lost on this setup in MillMage, because all of this, I got that. I got that. But right here, this allowance, the tooltip isn't there, because if you hover right there, nothing comes up and nothing populates. And if you go to documentation, it doesn't show you any documentation on it at all. But it does show up in the physical representation in the preview. So I'm going to do, I've got that. And just so we can really see what's going on, I'm going to reduce this to a 0.10 and say, okay. Then I'm going to duplicate this, Control D, duplicate it, new operation, a female inlay. And we're going to do the same thing with 0, 3 mil, 3 mil. And I'm going to do a 0.20. I'm doubling the amount of allowance and say, okay. And then, and actually I should have duplicated that. Let's say I'm going to duplicate that, bring that up here. And I'm going to assign this one to that pocket. So this pocket has got a 0.10 allowance, and this one has a 0.20 allowance. So I need to position it so that the smaller one, that's this, is, and it is, the smaller one is on top. No, it ain't. That's the bigger one. So I'm going to move that down here, and then this one, or is it? Yeah, that's 0.10. Okay. And this one is 0.20. And we'll make sure they're all set right. So that, come on, select that operation, and we'll make sure that's the one assigned to it. Good. And then select this operation, and that does indicate that's selected there. So this one is a 0.10. This is a 0.20. Select them both, then go to preview, blow it up. Okay, those look identical to me. So now I'm going to come back over here. Yeah, I've like I said, I've seen him on Facebook. I need to go and check him out on YouTube. I have found out a little bit about their naming. It's because the developers are not all English first language, so Google Translate renamed some things. I believe it will eventually be corrected. Okay. If you look at their illustration of the toolpath, it shows the line to be cut is on the side of the bit. Yeah. Yeah. Allowance is the side gap in your calculator. And say I don't, and that's where I have a problem. I intentionally set them both as female because I wanted to see a difference between that allowance. I want to see if you could, because, and I'm going to go back now and I'm going to exaggerate it even more because I want to see the difference between those two. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to tell this one to do 0 allowance and say, okay. So that's that one. And then this one, I'm going to tell it to do a 0.5 millimeter allowance and say, okay. So now there should be a noticeable difference between those two. So they're both selected for output, go to preview. And now you can. So there, that one is that's the 0.5 millimeter allowance. So that's making the pocket bigger. That's expanding the pocket. Now what I want to do, and this is something that I've been meaning to do, and we'll do it right now. I've been, and I only just either yesterday or today realized that the preview will show you just that. It'll show you the actual physical representation of that allowance that you're adding to it. And I woke up this morning and I've got my first sty. I've never had a sty in my entire life. I woke up this morning and had a nipple on my eyelid. It was a big old thing. Could hardly see. And it's starting to give me problems. I've been keeping a heat press on it most of the day, but it's been too long now and it's starting to give me problems. Allowance should be your glue gap, I would think, so it is deeper. Well, we're going to look at, we're going to create the males of these. And here's where I had, the way that I did my calculator is the female, nothing's done at all. All the allowances were made whenever I created the male part. The female was what it was, and then I created the male with the allowance. And we talked about this in last week, I think. It's like, well, why would you need to do them both? Well, maybe there is a time where something is too fragile. If you did your allowance in one, then it makes it way too fragile. It won't work. So you can leave it alone and do all of the allowance in the other by having the ability to pick one or the other instead of doing them in both. But let's the more involved the inlay, the more you're going to need fine points and not radiuses. Yeah, we can do eye surgery. You can see it swelling up. It's getting big tonight. I keep a hot compress on it and I keep it down. All right, so now let's go over here and let's look at these in a mail. So I want to duplicate these again, Control D, duplicate it, bring those down here. And now I'm going to create an operation and do a mail. And here I'm going to start at 0. My final depth, if I did 3 millimeters on my female, and I want a 2/10 of a millimeter gap for glue gap in the bottom, then my final depth's only going to be 2.8, and depth per pass will do the full thing. And then here we're going to do 0 and say okay, and we're going to assign this one to that one. Now I'm going to create a new operation. It'll be another mail inlay. We'll do the same, 0 to 2.8 to 2.8, and we'll do that full half. And here you can see that they're showing it's cutting outside the line instead of cutting inside the line. So MillMage is doing it inside and outside, and Chris pointed that out to me earlier, but I didn't pick up on the fact that because it's a V-bit, I was thinking it was cutting the line period and didn't matter. But I learned a better, I gained a better understanding of how the V-bit carves tonight. So, okay, and now create that and assign that to this one. So now I need to in order to be able to see that, I'm going to get me a rectangle, encompass both of those, select all of that. And actually, you know what? First, I need to say new operation pocket, and it needs to be 0 to 2.8, 2.8. And we can change that. Well, no, I ain't even going to worry about that. I'm going to leave it because I ain't worried about time and all that. Right now, I want to see visual representation. And good, and say okay, and assign that to that. Now, when I look at my preview, so that is, it's inverted. And looks like there's something funky going on there. I don't really know why it's done that. Hey, there's Clack going on. Oh yeah, you got yeah. And right now, Clack, I'm trying to understand the way MillMage works with their allowance. MillMage it doesn't use the same verbiage as Vectric, Aspire, and everybody else out there. So all the videos I can watch on V carving, it coming from a complete knowing nothing point of view, those videos don't help me. So I hear I'm not actually creating the pocket. I'm wanting to see what those changes and the values of the allowance actually does to the physical piece. And because here in MillMage, this top piece up here is the female pocket is a 0 allowance. This is a 0.5 millimeter allowance. And I did the same thing for the male, and I wanted to see what the outcome was going to be. And I still, and I think and tell me if I'm right or wrong. I don't think there's a need to do an allowance on both pieces. Is there? Can't you shouldn't you be able to get by with doing allowance or whatever they call it in Aspire on just one of either the male or the female? And if there's one piece, if the male or female, either one of them has got areas that are going to be more fragile, then maybe that's the one that you add the extra allowance to. I don't know. I don't know because, repeat, I don't know what I'm doing. but we're getting there. I'm making, like I said, this, and I don't know how long you've been in the stream there, Clack, but these are, that's an inlay that I did with Mill Mage, and it's got some gaps in it, and I didn't like the way it fit. But this one up here fits like a glove, and I did that using math that I understand. I didn't use the math that Mill Mage created. I used my own math, and I got a perfect inlay. Hey, and Ash Steve too. I didn't see you. Hey, brother. Glad y'all could stop in for a minute. So let's see here. All right, go down. One or the other, but having both gives you the option. Okay, so you don't need to do it in both. One or the other. And Clack says, as long as you have a bit of a gap with a bit, you're good. Or as long as you have a bit of a gap with a V bit, you're good. The male will be like a wedge. I'm no pro, but I've done a few. Yeah. Lurking while working. I got you. I am all in on Mill Mage. I've invested too much of my time waiting. I've been waiting on Mill Mage for 2 years, and I've had my CNC in mothballs. I've got this. This is my learning tool. My CNC is not nearly as big as your CNC, Steve, or David, but I've got 4x4 over in the other room, and it's been in mothballs because I couldn't afford to do Aspire or any of those other expensive softwares. And no matter how much I tried to sweet talk them into trying to give me licenses to help create a channel kind of like this, they weren't interested because they didn't need it, because they had all the business they had. They didn't need anybody. They didn't need to give any freebies away to help. So I'm all in on Mill Mage. I want it, and because it is a half brother or half sister of Lightburn, and I've got such a good understanding of how the designing process and all works in Lightburn, I really want to embrace Mill Mage. And the design concept of Mill Mage has not changed. That's piece of cake. Now it's just figuring out the geometries, whenever we're working with lasers, you run test after test after test. And I mentioned you earlier, Dave, whenever, when I was early on, when I was watching, a lot of your videos, you will mention like, well, I use these tumblers. I've been using these tumblers for a long time. They do really good. And, it works, and it works for me. And this is what I use, and I like it, and I get good results. I don't use anything else. And it's perfectly understandable. You spend the time figuring out what works, how it works, how to get good results with it. Don't change that up by bringing in a different tumbler or whatever it is, because you're not going to necessarily get the same results. But you spend a whole lot of time testing and developing and techniques. Well, that's where I'm at right now. I've got I'm full on embracing V carving right now, and inlays, doing V carving. I've been doing inlays for a while using the laser. This is maple and walnut, done that with the laser, and did okay. And it's super, super thin, but I want to be able to do more with the CNC. And right now it's just a matter of lots of practicing, figuring out the techniques, and the fact. And then Chris just mentioned that a lot of the verbiage in Mill Mage might be a result of it being from someone who has English as a second language, and they may be changing things up and make things more of an industry standard. And that'll be really, really, really helpful. But at the same time, because I cannot use any of the other videos as a crutch, it's forcing me to actually just start going in and trying things, see what happens when you do this or do that. And it's a longer learning curve, but I feel like I'll be in a better place as a result of it, because a lot of trial and error, a lot of error. But the beauty of it is with the Cubico, because everything is so small, you can have 10 errors that cost you the same as one error trying to use the big 40 or the big 4x4 CNC, and the setup time a whole lot less. And so I'm really happy with the investment of the Cubico. And if you are finding any of this at all interesting, I still have a Cubico that I'm going to be giving away on my Patreon page. And but if you are wanting to, let's see here, do I have it? Did I make it? Did I do one? I did not. But if you go to hobowithwood.com/Cubico, that'll give me, I think, $5 or $10 for every time you buy, everybody that buys a Cubico. So hobowithwood.com/Cubico, Cubiko. I do get a little bit of a thank you for sending you that way. And you can go over and subscribe and get your Mill Mage. In fact, I think right now, and Chris, am I wrong? Are they still, let's go back to that. I think right now, since they're in the pre-release, you can download Mill Mage for free. And yeah, and I don't think it's a 30-day free trial. I think as long as it's in pre-release, I don't think there's any charge for it. I think. Is that right, Chris? Am I wrong? So I am tomorrow is Sunday, and with doing 2 streams now on Saturday, lasers and then CNC, or CNC then lasers, depending on which day it is. Not sure actually. Yeah, I think I had read as long as it was in pre-release, it was free to use because they wanted to get more and more feedback. But I may be wrong because I make mistakes every 30 seconds. But tomorrow I'm going to be not doing a whole lot in here. I got to go out and cut grass and get the yard cleaned up. And then Ed, I don't even know if you're still with us. I will. I think you mentioned going to West Penn Hardwoods. Oh, there he is. Ed's still here, and it says it's for 30 days. You know, I don't know, Ed, if they're holding true to that. Whenever your 30 days is up, if you're not ready to purchase it yet, you might ask them, you know, are you doing any extended testing? Because I don't know who said it, because I seem to have heard that. But I make mistakes, and it's been about 30 seconds since I made the last one. But let me know, Ed, if you mentioned you were wanting to go Tuesday. Tuesday's good for me. We'll go to West Penn. And Jack, if you aren't, if you are the type of person that wants to pick out all their own wood, I totally understand, because I'm that person. But if you say, hey man, I need X number of board feet of 4 quarter cherry, or what are you using? 8 quarter, 4 quarter. If you just say, hey, I need X number of board feet of that, and can you bring it back? Yeah, I'll load it up and bring it back for you. So if you want to put an order in, Jack, let me know. But Saturdays, and you know what we could do? And for everybody that's out there, Jack and Ed live about equal distances from me. Ed's that way, and Jack's right over there. But we had an interesting week, I think, this week. There was some redneck, apparently, that didn't want to go to court because they called in a bomb threat at the courthouse, and they had to shut everything down and cancel everything. So everybody, So, Jack, you say you can't go to West Penn except on the weekends because of work. Call in a bomb threat and tell them you can't come into work and you can go with us. Anytime, Ed. Anytime. If we'll just uh work around your schedule. Whatever works for you, we'll make it happen. I think you can extend the trial, and mine said for 30 days. And then there we go. Don says I've extended mine twice, and I think I, I'm almost positive that I heard that as long as it was in pre-release, they were wanting to keep people using it to help try and find those. But the minute it goes from pre-release to an official release, then that'll be the end of the trials period. Yeah, you can see it's getting worse. I got to go get some compress on there. Well, Ed, our day here usually starts by 9 by the time he gets up and gets his coffee and breakfast. So anytime after that, if you're comfortable with him going, if he wants to, he may not want to go. I'll have to play it by ear and see what he wants, what's good for him. And so anytime after 9 a.m., I'll have all of my responsibilities taken care of here, and I can do whatever. All right. Well, guys and gals, and are there any gals in this group? That's something. I've seen a few of the women pop in and say hey and all that, but I've had a pretty looks like the same 38 to 40 people been here through this whole stream. There's Sharon. Sharon's there. Sharon's here. Sharon, are you doing CNC work? Are you a CNCer, or are you just kind of hanging out to see what's going on? And are you sitting on the fence on grabbing you a Cubico, or do you do CNC work already? We had some guys working on downtown underground in Charlotte, packed some trash in an 8-inch section of 2-inch conduit with a small and a my license copy says updates have expired. Have to get them to fix that. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure that was a big stank. I'm sure it was. All right. But I think this is probably more of the CNC world. There are some female CNC. Sharon says, no, and I don't plan on starting. I'm getting my third. I'm getting a 3D printer from my daughter. And I went to lunch today with one of you guys. He'd come down from all the way from upstate New York. Robert come down and did an event in Hickory, North Carolina, and come by, and we had dinner today. And he said, he was on the fence. But he just couldn't see pulling another trigger on another hobby because he just got too many going on right now. And there's only so much time to devote to so many hobbies, and you can't get into too many. So there are some female CNCers, because I have been watching their channel on YouTube. But I think this is probably more of a male dominant hobby than there are females out there. So it'll be interesting to see what the demographics are on this channel. All right. So yeah, you guys all have a good evening. I'm going to go get a hot compress on this and get this calmed down, because it is getting ugly. It's almost can't even see out of it now. And hopefully it'll be getting better before we go live next week. I know that feeling. CNC is losing out to lasers. I know that feeling. CNC is losing out. So the lasers have taken the place of CNC work for hobbyists, you think, Chris? A group called Women Who CNC. Yeah, and there's similar with the lasers too. And I love watching that mom with a laser. She's sweet. Too many hobbies. Yeah. Too many hobbies, not enough hours in a day. And when you get too many hobbies taking up too many hours, then our responsibilities become neglected. And if you don't believe me, drive by my front yard. That'll be tomorrow's project. Well, thank you, Bob, for supporting. Thank you for your support being here and participating and just going on this journey with us. Thank you. I appreciate your camaraderie and your support, both as a patron and as a contributor in the streams. I greatly appreciate it. All right. I had too many hobbies, so I quit my job. How's that working out for you there? I missed your live stream this week. Oh man. Oh. But yeah, well, Dave, I had this has been my job for the last 3 years. This has been my job. YouTube is my sole means of income. And when I say my sole means of income, the files that I generate and show and sell here on YouTube and sell on my website, any of those all spawn from this avenue. So this is my job. And I bought that big CNC work machine because I thought that was something that I was going to really enjoy doing, but the learning curve and the expense of the software was too much. So when they teased us 2 years ago with MillMage, I was like, yay! I went all the way to Peoria, East Peoria, to see it unveiled, and they even had all kinds of examples of stuff they made with MillMage, and I'm all great. Sorry, guys, we're not letting you see it. It ain't ready yet, and we're not releasing it. And then they didn't release it, and then they still, and now they still I haven't officially released it yet. So, all right, guys and gals, or gal, thanks for hanging out with me. You guys have a great evening. As Ed says, hit that like and share. And if you want to continue to go on this journey of watching somebody who doesn't know what they're doing figure it out, and I got to go look at my calculator. It works. I have proof that my calculator works, but I need to get a better understanding of how MillMage does its calculations, its math, its rendering, and then once I can fully embrace that and get the logic in here, I might be better begin to understand how. And from what I'm seeing, their intent was to mirror what Vetric and all the other guys are doing, but then calling it different names and not having it ready. It's not ready, but that's why it's in pre-release, right? It's not ready. So coming here is cheaper than going to a nightclub. You can say that again, brother. I wished when I was dealing with the public, I was in full retail my entire life. But when I ran the tire shop and dealing with retail customers, and this was pre-COVID, so this was before people went really ape shit crazy. Pardon my French. This was when people still had some common sense. It was still, the stress was nuts. And so I had an Irish pub that I would go visit after a long day's work and sit down and have a glass or two or three of fine Irish whiskey. And if I could have all those bar tabs back right now, I wouldn't be having to do 2 live streams on Saturdays and trying to pick up new patron supporters, and because I could have retired a rich man if I had all those bar tabs back. So yeah, this is cheaper than going to the pub or the club. All right, guys and gals. Chris says when it's first ready, it will still be. Oh yes, absolutely. And I'm not expecting that. I have no unrealistic expectations. I tell people, and anybody that's watching this right now, if you are a CNCer who is using Vectric or VCarve or any of those other stuff out there, it's fully developed and all that, should you pull the trigger and jump over to MillMage right now? No. If you're not a CNCer, if you are a laserologist, if you have been using Lightburn for the past 6 months or 6 years, and you have a really full grasp of Lightburn and how it works, and you're thinking about going into CNC, then I think you would absolutely be crazy to use any other software than MillMage. Because right now, as a CNCer who doesn't know what you're doing, like me, if you're just starting out, what I'm trying to do right now, I honestly feel is this is maybe it's this. I don't think this is the simplest thing to try and grasp to do. I mean, this is simple, just a pocket with an image engraved in it. That's elementary. This is not. This is more complicated. There's more going on in here. The fact that I've created an entire calculator just to figure out the optimal inlays and all that, there's a whole lot going on to create inlays, VCarve inlays. So I am trying to run before I can crawl. And I recognize that. But I like to challenge myself. And the more I learn trying to fully grasp how this works, the easier stuff like this is going to be, because I'm learning all kinds of things doing this. It's going to come in handy doing this. So if you're thinking about becoming a CNCer, you're going to get a Cubico, or you've been thinking about going and buying a Onefinity or any of the bigger Genmitsus, maybe you start with this. This is cheap. This is dirt cheap. HoboWithWood.com/Cubico. Go over and grab you one, and you can get your MillMage right now for free, and you'll be able to renew it at least 2 or 3 times for free. And you start to grasp how CNC works. And as your abilities get better, MillMage should be developing. Hopefully your skills, my skills, our skills will be developing at least a comparable rate at the MillMage will be progressing. Hopefully. That would be a real issue for me if MillMage stays in pre-release for a year and they don't continue to grow and develop it at a moderate pace. Then that would be a little disheartening. But if you're just starting out, absolutely. And if you're just starting out with CNC work and you are a Lightburn user, don't go and try and wrap your head around a whole. You're learning a new technique and a new hobby with the CNC. Why do you want to go and try and relearn a whole brand new software with all kinds of different? I mean, you already know how to create offsets and shapes and stars and text and all that with your Lightburn. What's the same? The design aspect is exactly the same. So why go relearn a graphics part of a new software? Just go into MillMage. Go into MillMage if you're just starting. Yeah, amen to that. And as Garth Brooks, well, actually, Garth Brooks didn't say it because Garth Brooks ain't never said nothing. He says everybody else's words. Whoever wrote the song that Garth Brooks sang, sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers. I think my problem was I have really high hopes for MillMage. I think it is good for what it is, but way underpowered for what I need. Yeah, and Jack, that's because for what you're doing and the stuff you're posting with your 3D carves and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. You've advanced way beyond MillMage's capabilities. But it's perfect for somebody like me who knows nothing about CNCs and wants to learn both CNC work and the new software. I've cut my learning curve in half by already knowing how to use the design part of MillMage. I'm looking for something to replace Carveco, and I feel Millmage might be the one in time. It depends on ordinary woodworker. It depends on where you're at with your capabilities. You may find that if you're as advanced a CNCer as Jack is, then you may find Millmage. It's like when I first started with CNC work, I tried Easel. I tried a whole bunch of the other beginner software, and they were so limiting and so restrictive about their capabilities. I had no use for them at all. Even as a beginner, not knowing what I'm doing, I'm like, yeah, because here it is. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm tackling, V carves, inlays. I don't care anything about putting a circle in there and say, oh, look, I did a circle. Oh, golly, I did a circle. Look at it. It's so pretty. Yeah. Or look at my star. I did a star. Easel is like finger painting for kindergartners. I don't see any value in it at all. Now, maybe they've changed in the last 2 years, but that's useless. I think that's a stepping stone to get you in, and then immediately you're looking for something else. And that's where Millmage has filled a void in the market by coming in at a reasonably priced, will be a fully capable software, but not at the price of those Fusion 360s, Aspire, or all Vectrix, all those. Some of those get really, really nasty. All right, I'm going to go put an eye patch on. Boys and girls, thank you again for hanging out. And now I've got some more things to connoiter, to think about. Now that I understand the geometry, I have a better understanding of the geometry of the V-bit while it's carving. So I've learned a few things tonight. Hope you have too, or at least I've entertained you at my stupidity. Why? Because I don't know what I'm doing. Except I do know I'm signing off. I'll see you in the next video. Y'all have a good night. Or a good day, depending on where you're watching. Chris, go get some sleep, brother.